The other thing is when you're looking at the details is identifying exactly where you are today. Let me back up. Once you thought big, then you looked at the details, now you sit back and you say, where am I actually today? Now that you write that down as well and be honest, because this is you, this is your business, nobody's looking at it but you got to be honest. You have to know where you are today because you just were dreaming big over here and you have to know how do you bridge this gap. So you got to be honest with yourself. While you're doing that, you need to give yourself permission to be successful. Sometimes we are so afraid of failure and also of success because if this works, then what am I going to do? I got to keep doing it. Or if I get to this level, then I got to keep going because now these people know I do this, so they expect I'm going to keep doing it. You can't just throw it out there. And that's a little scary, actually. It's scary to fail, and it's scary sometimes to be successful as well. But you can't run a business just keep it to yourself. But you've got to give yourself permission to be successful. Give yourself permission to fail because that's a learning experience, but make sure when you do fail, because there's going to be something that you do wrong, but when you do, learn something from it so that you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake. There's nothing wrong with spending money on this and that didn't quite turn out like I thought. That's all right, but what do you learn from the next time? For me, since I've got this book, people keep telling me, oh, this conference is coming, they got this and this, and you need to go there, you need to do this. Okay, that was $2,000 worth of vendor fees you just told me about. My book is $18. Okay, how many books do I have to sell to break even for the vendor fee, let alone flying to get there in the hotel and all of these things? So as a businesswoman or a businessman, those are the details that you have to think about as well. The not so nice is the extras that come into play, but you got to think of all the details with that and give yourself permission. If something goes wrong, all right, what did I learn from that? Take little steps. Once you take one step, you can take the next one and you keep building on that. You're building a foundation. If you start off right with your business and you build a strong foundation, you can keep going from there. If you start out and it's more like sand, it's going to sink. Maybe a little muddy, it's going to sink. So you want a solid foundation. You want concrete, but you've got to do some things to get it in order to have it, at that point in the first place. So, I'm getting close to my time. What questions do you have? Am I being clear? I'm seeing head, I just want to make sure that you're understanding. Okay. What questions do you have, or let me say this. How are you going to use some of these ideas, or can you use some of these ideas in your business? I want to make sure you can take something back, take something out of here.
I have a question, but not that.
Okay.
My question was, how does you said give yourself permission to be successful. How would a person show that they're not giving themselves permission to be successful? Because people have fear of failure, but how does that show itself as fear of success?
When it's somewhat obvious of what the next step might be for you, okay, let me use myself for instance. Write a book. People expect your book is in Borders and Barnes & Noble and everywhere. So my book is not, but there are reasons for that. Mainly because, again, for cost-wise, it doesn't make sense for me to do that. My business is coaching and consulting and more so talking, inspirational speaking, talking with people more directly. My goal was not to be a national or best-selling author. If I do, y'all buy enough books, thank you. I appreciate it. Christmas coming up, gifts, But so if that happens, then that's great, but that's not my goal. So it may seem like I'm not taking that next step because I'm not in all the bookstores. My book is just at my CoachKellySpeaks.com website. So that may seem like the logical next step. But for me, that's not, because that's not what I wanted to do. The reason behind that is all of the costs that come into play. When you have your book in the bookstores like that, especially I self-published it through Scribe, etc. So when you, number one, self-publish, that puts you on a whole nother track than it does for being with a large publishing company, which those cost a lot more just from the start also. For Borders, Barnes & Noble, all of these things, if you to have your book in there, there's a fee. To have it on the shelf, alphabetized, there's a fee. To have it facing spine out, there's a fee. To have it in the self-help motivational sector, that's a fee. To have it on the end cap, fee. To have it in the front with the, okay, my book is $18. I still have to pay, to get the book, to have it printed. I still have, have that. So that's $7 or something for there. By the time I get the book on the end, so you all will actually see it, I dang near old quarters, a couple of dollars. So why do that? It looks good, maybe it's more accessible, but should I lose a couple of dollars on every book that I sold, or should I try to really be able to talk to people, you know, and more so help that way? Which to me, that's why I wrote it, because it was what was going on with me and realizing there are other people that are not happy where they are, but not quite sure how to take a step into doing something else because it's scary and you don't know what's going to happen when you take that step out. So that's why I wrote it. I didn't mean to write a book, quite honestly. It was just me going through my transition from corporate to entrepreneurship and understanding I can help somebody else with my story, and if I can share that, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and I'm on the right path. So your question about how do you not be successful, you have to define what success is for yourself, number one, and then be willing to take the step. It's scary for me to say, I'm going to put my name out there and I'm an inspirational speaker, because who's going to come here now? I don't know. It might just be my mama. You know, so that's scary. But to not do that, I'm not allowing myself to be successful. To not have, you know, a table here to say, hey, hi, I'm Kelly, this is my book, you know, or not even this is my book, but this is what this is about, how are you? And then usually people are like, oh, well, I really, I was just, and people start talking. So me not doing something to work towards my goal, my business, would be me not being successful. Blocking, you're blocking yourself. Don't block your blessings, don't block your next steps. Usually because you're afraid of, again, well, if I do that, they might ask me to come back next year. I might have to speak to like 50, 60, 100, you know. You don't want to block the blessings.
What's your website again?
CoachKellySpeaks.com.
Okay, I said that.
Kelly, speaks.com. And I do have books out there, and I've got my cards on the table and everything as well.